What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods here, and we are here with Nijuel Hill, Delaware cornerback, prepping up for the NFL draft. And this guy's a multiple-time All-CAA selection, an FCS All-American from the spring season. It was an intricate part to why Delaware found themselves in the Final Four of the FCS playoffs in the spring season, man. So, Nigel, appreciate you hopping on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And so let's go way back, man. You're out of Baltimore, a very competitive high school circuit up there in that area. I don't think a lot of people give you guys credit for how good that high school football is, but very accomplished. Who was recruiting you the hardest? Which teams were recruiting you the most?
Got you. So out of high school, I really wasn't that much of a highly recruited guy. I think I was probably ranked like a 2-star coming out of high school. Leaving high school, I had about 4 offers. I had I had Toledo was probably my biggest offer. I had Old Dominion, also. I had Monmouth, and then obviously my fourth one was the University of Delaware. And then I really didn't want to leave home that too far home because family is such a big part for me personally. So I wanted for my family to be able to get to all my games. So Toledo was kind of out. Just because it's all the way in Ohio. I wanted to be Old Dominion, but you know, things happened, things fell through the cracks, about having an offer really being there, actually being on the table once you wanted to commit. Another guy might have committed there. That offer might not still be available by the time you wanted to commit. So Delaware was just, probably the best fit for me. I'm so happy that I made that selection to go to the University of Delaware, just because, I feel like it's a second home. It's just an extension for home for me.
Yeah, and I mean, you get to Delaware, man, you redshirt, and then the next season you become an immediate contributor. But you had a coaching change right after you got to campus. How tough was that for you? And just kind of walk me through the process of what that coaching change was like for the program.
Well, I mean, that coaching change, having Danny Rocco come in, he really just changed the whole culture around. When I was there for the 1 year, when Coach Brock was there, Coach Brock was a great guy, great coach, but honestly, he just couldn't get things rolling, couldn't get everybody, underway. But Coach Rocco, when he came in, he was able to get everybody to get rolling, getting everybody under the same page, getting everybody working as to one goal. And that one goal was always to make a run into the FCS playoffs. That was always his main goal, was to make a run in the FCS playoffs. He always told us that we need to win 8 games or more to win our conference championship, and then to make a run into the FCS playoffs. And that took a little time. We always had the talent. Delaware always had the talent, as you know. Being able to put Bilal Nichols into the NFL. Blaine Woodson was also in the NFL for a short stint. From that 2017 class, and then following that right up, Nasir Adderley getting drafted in the second round, and then Troy Reader. Just won a Super Bowl for the LA Rams. So we've always had the talent coming out of University of Delaware. It was just always just making sure that we were all working to a common goal. And I think Danny Rocco, that's kudos to Danny Rocco for just making sure that everybody was under the same page. Everybody was on the same page. To be honest.
And then what is that's actually a perfect segue into like my next question about head coach, Danny Rocco. What is he like behind the scenes, and what's his relationship like with the players in the locker room?
I mean, honestly, when he's with the media, you can kind of portray him as a very serious guy, but honestly, he's a very funny guy. He's a very humble guy. He always likes to talk to his players. He's actually one of the most funniest guys that I know personally, just because he's always cracking jokes. We always go back and forth. I told him that one time. I was like, Coach, I used to play quarterback when I was in Little League, and he said, I bet you was. He was like, just because the athletic ability. It's like everybody used to play quarterback in Little League, but that's neither here nor there. But Coach Rocco really just loved his players. One, I know that for certain, just because the passion that he had, the intricate detail that he will put into every single week. He always had a game plan where he let us believe that we were going to win. We never went into a week thinking that we were going to be outmatched, whether or not that was an FBS opponent or an FCS opponent. And that was always kudos to him for just saying how detailed and how well prepared he was. And I think that really led us to, when that COVID year hit, that was probably the best year where I could show you where his attention to detail never wavered. Just because he took that same passion, that same energy into every single week, whether or not a game got canceled or whether we were playing, somewhere up in Rhode Island or somewhere. He always gave us that full 100% commitment.
And that's actually the season I wanted to talk about next. We'll get into the major success you guys had in a second, but walk me through what it was like to hear the fall season's canceled and then just kind of be in limbo. You didn't know, like you said, if you were going to be sitting at home when you should have been playing or playing a top-notch opponent in the CAA. So for you, how tough was the COVID season on yourself? And then kind of talk about what it was like as a program.
Got you. Well, COVID was really, I feel like it was very tough for everybody, for being completely honest, not just football players, but, going into that year, that was my senior year. Would have been my last senior year. So I knew that I wanted to make a big impact that year. So knowing that my season would have got canceled, knowing whether or not I knew that I was going to either be able to play again, whether or not my eligibility would still remain. I didn't know whether or not I was even going to be able to have an opportunity to play my senior year. And that would have been very heartbreaking for me, just because not only did I have dreams and aspirations of making it to the NFL, but I wanted to leave on a big note. Knowing that I never would have beat our arch rival Villanova. I've always been told from players in the past who was never being Villanova saying, like, don't let that happen to you. Don't let that happen to you. And for me not to have that opportunity to at least try my very last time, at least try to get that back, would have been very heartbreaking. But, I just trusted the process, to trust the Lord, knowing that some way or another he was going to make something happen for me and my family. So what I did personally, I just never stopped working out. I used to go running by myself on the tracks back in Baltimore, just trying to run, stay in shape, going to the fields when I could, sneaking in when I could, because honestly they were all shut down. It was multiple times where I got pulled off the fields from police officers saying, you can't be here, due to COVID. I would try to get workouts with other DBs and wide receivers in the Baltimore area. And then since it was over, 10 or 15 guys, social distancing was such a thing that we couldn't be together for so long. So we would try to get in as many reps as possible before, police officials would come and pull us off the field. And those guys were good. They would let us get our reps in as much as we can. It was never violent or anything of that nature. But it was just hard, just because you get very complacent, especially when COVID was over a year and a half. Honestly, you get complacent about knowing whether you're going to play or not, and you really wonder to yourself whether or not does all of this matter. You're working out so much, and you're wondering to yourself, oh, is this even going to pay off? Is this going to even, am I even going to have a season? Am I working out in vain? That's a lot of things that was going through my head. But honestly, I never really worried. I never tried to think about those negative thoughts. I just kept saying to myself that it's going to pay off. It did. Going into our successful season in the spring.
And that, man, it's almost like you see the questions on your screen. So, well, what made that spring 2021 team so special, and how were y'all able to achieve as much as you guys did?
Well, what made that team in that season just so special was just because everybody had that same hunger. I feel like that I did. It's so hard to get a whole team to have the same kind of hunger and burning passion that the seniors do, especially when it comes to freshman guys who just came in. And those freshmen also, I feel like in their first time in their life, whether or not it been an injury or not, has gotten football taken away from them. And when you have football taken away from you, it's probably one of the worst feelings, in the world, especially coming from a athlete who's been playing football since the age of 5. So when you have that hunger and passion that your seniors do, same as the freshmen, then you have a very, very hard team to beat. Going into that 2021 season, we had a chip on our shoulder just because, we didn't have the successful season. I think the year prior, I think we went 5-7. Um, and it was really kudos to we had a new defensive coordinator that year too, Coach Manny Rojas, and he came in and changed our whole defense around. And Coach Rojas was with us before. A couple guys didn't, but I remember Coach Rojas when we had made a playoff run in 2018, I believe, when we went against JMU in the in the first round. We got eliminated. But Coach Rojas has always been a guy who has energy, and him bringing that energy fed the defense. We had one of the best defenses in the country that season. And then once you know one side of the ball gets to rocking, that competitiveness, and we haven't played football in over a year, that juice and that energy and that camaraderie is just contagious, basically. So once you start getting that energy and camaraderie, it's kind of hard to explain, but you just start getting that momentum and you start rolling. And then once you start rolling against guys, getting up on guys early in the games, and plus, like I said, for COVID, some guys might have not taken it as serious, because they said, well, since we started figuring out that, oh, well, we'll get our eligibility back next year, we weren't thinking about next year. We were just happy and thankful that we were able to play football again, with our brothers. So we was taking that into full advantage of it, and every time we went out on that field, we were playing for each other, and we were playing as hard as we could as possible, because we knew that football could be snatched away from us whenever, whether or not that be our fault, or some other energy's fault. But that spring season was such a great time, and I will never forget it. And then with that success, we had a CAA championship, made it to the Final Four in the FCS playoffs, and I'll never forget it.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned before that, it was supposed to be your senior year. You decided to come back. What was your decision making process like? Did you think about going to the draft? And if so, what drew you back to Delaware for one more year?
I did. I highly did consider going to the draft that year. You know, I even, believe it or not, wanted to even transfer, just because COVID had so many question marks. That was the reason why I wanted to leave in that draft the year prior, was because that was my high school class, basically. So I knew a lot of guys getting drafted in that high school, in that draft class, and I knew that I was, not only could I compete with them on that level, but I believe deep down that I was better than a couple of guys that did get drafted that year. Also, like when it comes to the transferring part, I didn't know if the University of Delaware was going to honor my scholarship. That was a lot of I saw a lot of FCS guys actually leaving their schools because their scholarships weren't being honored, because COVID protocols. They weren't there wasn't enough money to honor those guys scholarships because of the incoming classes. So I also was considering going into the transfer portal, but I thank Chrissy Raywalk, our University of Delaware's athletic director, for honoring not only mine but all of the seniors' scholarships that were previously on scholarships. So that was a huge thing for me to come back, because I've honestly put blood, sweat, and tears into that university, and the fact that they were able to reciprocate that kind of love, for me, was a huge thing on coming back, and just finishing it off strong. Just being with my brothers one more time. Honestly, that spring season, I didn't want to just leave my brothers high and dry. No one has ever, transferred from Delaware since I've been there. We've always gotten transfer guys in, but no one has ever really transferred out of Delaware, and has made it all the way to the very end. We've always finished it out. So I feel like I would have been, leaving my brothers high and dry if I didn't finish it out with them. So that was the one. Those are two main reasons of why I wanted to stay.
And it paid off, man. Another All American season for you again. That just adds to your long list of accomplishments. But let's go back to freshman year Nigel Hill and compare him to the guy that's entering the draft that I'm talking to right now. How has your game on the field evolved from freshman year until now?
Well, coming in freshman year, I was probably soaking wet, probably 170, if that. I was still probably about 5'10", but I wasn't as big, wasn't as physically, ready for the college football. I thought I was. When I did redshirt, I cried because I knew I was better than a lot of guys um, in the defensive back room, and I felt like I could contribute also. I knew a couple, true freshman guys out in the country in the CAA that didn't redshirt, and I saw them competing, and I wanted to contribute for my team as well. But I mean, it did pay off in the end, and I'm thankful that I did redshirt. But if I had to compare my game and how it's evolved, I've gotten a lot smarter as a player. I'm able to diagnose a lot of receiver splits and formations now. Before then, when you're just a freshman, you don't really understand film study as much as an older guy does. So you really got to learn. One person or two people in particular who taught me that was Malcolm Brown and Nasir Adderley. Those are the two guys that really just taught me how to break down film, what to watch, what to look for in QB's tendencies, and whether or not when he takes his pre-snap progressions, wherever he looks last, that's probably where he's going to go. I picked up on certain things about that for QBs in our league. Also, certain formations are higher percentage runs or higher percentage passes, and things like that. So, and then just being more physical, honestly. My redshirt year, I got a shoulder injury just because I wasn't as physically ready for the college football toll that takes on your body. But being like more physical, I probably gained about 15 solid pounds now. I'm about 185, 190, and still being able to keep that speed up was very important for me in my game. Because speed is my biggest asset. Being able to be quick and being able to be fast, being able to cover people, and also being physical at the same time. I feel like that's something that is one of my greatest assets, honestly. And just I feel like I've always had that inner dog mentality. Honestly, I've always been feisty. I've always been one of those guys who's on the field talking, no matter what, no matter who's in front of me, whether or not to be an offensive lineman, whether or not to be a quarterback, whether or not to be a coach. If a coach is talking to me on the sideline, I'm gonna talk back. It's not rocket science for me over here, but I feel like those are my key things that just help me, that make me tick.
Oh man, I love it. Even talking to the coaches, but
Yeah.
we'll get into that because that's one of the next questions about trash talking on the field. But looking at the NFL right now, is there an NFL player that you think you model your game after?
Oh, 100%. Probably Kenny Moore, the slot cornerback for the Colts. I look up to him a lot, honestly. If he's hearing this interview, I'd be astonished. I would be so happy that he's hearing it. If I when I do make it to the NFL, I do want to talk to him personally, just to pick his brain, just because he's a smaller school guy too. I know he came from the lower end, didn't go to a Power Five school, didn't get invited to the NFL draft. I mean, to the NFL Combine, but performed well at his pro day and got a shot. Was an undrafted guy. So and I know he takes his film study very, very seriously. I've watched multiple interviews on him on how much he does prepare himself for getting ready for an NFL game. So if I could talk to one of them, talk to him one day, that would be such a blessing. But in prior years, I would probably want to say I like to model myself off either Darrell Revis, just because of how technically sound he was when it came to just being a cornerback. I feel like he was, for modern days, God, the first shutdown corner. Obviously Deion Sanders was the prototype. But Darrell Revis was technically a little undersized. I think he was like a 5'11" guy. Wasn't the tallest, but he was able to go up against guys like Des Bryant, who's 6'3". Calvin Johnson, 6'5" guys, and shut those guys down. So he was honestly one of the guys who took his technical ability and his athletic ability and put it together, just to show you, if you do, put in the work and put in the right amount of hours perfecting your craft, with your technique, that, you could be one of the, if not the best corners in the NFL, and going down in history as probably one of the best, if not the best corner in the league.
Top 2, in my opinion. It's gotta be
Top
Dion and
10.
him right there in
Yes,
top
sir.
2 if I had to guess. But, I was an O lineman, and usually we're not very superstitious. I had my whole pregame routine kinda laid out. I had to do my thing. are you very superstitious before a game? And if you are, what's your pregame routine?
I am. I am very superstitious. It's kind of had its nicks and tweaks every year. But it's always the main thing. I want to get there like very early. And I have my headphones in the whole entire day. I have my coaches even know, like, when they're doing their pregame speeches and stuff, like going over the game plans, they know that I'm gonna still have one earphone in, one earphone out. I'm still listening, paying attention, but I'm also getting in my mode, just because I know that for me to get in that mode, it takes a little bit longer than a lot of other guys. I like to go through my game plan first. Don't want to get too hyped too early, because if you get too hyped too early, you won't have that kind of energy that you need that will last you out throughout the game. So honestly, I like to have my headphones on the whole time. I'm not really a guy who likes to go around talking a lot to a lot of people. I'm probably one of, if not the first guy out on the field every single time before any coaches, before any players from the opposite team are even out there, for home and away. If we're running late, because we're at our away game, I'm kind of mad, because it's like I need to get out there on the field because I want to do my pregame stretching and stuff. I like to stretch, get a couple quick runs in before, and I want to stretch, do my footwork, my DB drills, and then if I still got a little bit of extra time, I want to get some one-on-ones with our receivers, getting some releases down, just because I know I'm gonna be in press man, I'm gonna be an off man a lot, because it's not like we were just a man and cover three team. We were a multiple defense team. So I was going to be playing off. I'm going to be playing press. I'm going to be playing like 5 yards, 6 yards. So I'm going to be doing a lot of different things. So I just can't practice one thing, just to get ready. I got to practice multiple looks, multiple sets, so I can get ready. That's why I'm always want to be the first, if not the first, one of the first guys out there, on the practice field. Then after that, I go back inside, get my pads on and stuff, whatnot, get taped up, and I'm still listening to music throughout the whole time. And then after that, it's ready to go, ready to rock and roll.
I like it. And so you've already kind of answered this, so we'll have to kind of expand on it. So instead of are you a trash talker during the game, how much trash do you talk during the game?
I got you. I really don't stop. It's not a how much. It's just like, when do you stop talking trash for me, honestly. I do like to gauge the receiver that I'm playing. If I can get into his head early, it's going to be a very long game, honestly. But one thing about me, like, towards the end of I was talking a lot of more trash in the beginning of my collegiate career, just because I was getting tested a lot more. A lot of guys were saying, "Oh, it's a freshman corner. We're going to pick on him a lot," and that really didn't work out too well for a lot of guys. Because I was making a lot of plays there. But talking trash, getting under receiver skin, talking about what their stats are, how many catches he gets during the game, like during weeks prior. If he had a good game the week prior, I'll let him know that it's not happening today. Or if he had a terrible week prior, I'll tell him how easy it is today. Stuff like that. Talking trash to offensive linemen, just because y'all like to bully us. Every time y'all see a little DB having to set the edge or something, y'all supposed to demolish us. And I feel like if you don't demolish me, I won that rep. So if I'm winning that rep, whether or not you push me back a couple yards or not, I know I'm supposed to be on my ass. And if I'm not on my ass, and if I'm up talking, I'm gonna let you hear about it. I'm gonna be like, that's why you didn't put me on the ground, this and the third. We got into a couple, not a fist fights, but no, a couple altercations with linemen, and I was just happy, to have my defensive lineman have my back, because I know you guys probably just be like, yo, why is this little guy talking to me and stuff, and try to just move me to the side. But when you have your brothers behind your back, another guy who's about 6'4", 6'5", 300 pounds, you feel a little better. You feel a little better about talking trash to a guy who's about 6'3", 6'4", But talking trash is just a way. For me, honestly, I've been taught that DB is supposed to talk trash because we're playing the hardest position on the field. Like, you got to go backwards. You're running backwards at full speed. And you got somebody who's running 4.4, 4.5, or even 4.3, running full speed at you. And if you can stop them and they know where they're going, and you have no clue where they're going, you have to talk trash, because you have to hype yourself up, because nobody else will. You're the last line of defense basically at all times. And if you have a great game and you have one bad play, that one bad play could cost you guys the game. So if you're not the one that's hyping you up, if you aren't giving yourself that inner confidence, you always have to be confident at DB no matter what. Whether or not you give up a bad play, whether or not you make a great play, you always have to have that inner confidence. So if you're talking trash, that means that just shows me that DB is very confident, and that's something that I like to be, is that I like to be confident no matter what. And even if I do give up a play, I know that's going to happen. Those things are always going to happen. It's football, and if you're playing football at the highest level, that's bound to happen. But you just got to make more plays than you give up, and that's why I like talking trash, because at the end of the game, it's never any animosity. It's always out of love, out of the love for the competition of the sport. I don't think I've ever had any guys who said that they hated me after talking trash, but it's just to show my love and passion for the sport of the game.
Man, I love your breakdown of why DBs have to talk trash. That needs to be like on like some DB merch or something like that. That's gonna be like your first T-shirt with like the quote on the back. I love that. And
Yes, sir.
you know, you don't have to give away all your secrets. I know there's some wide receivers that are watching this, like, man, I probably should have known this already. But what's the number one mistake a wide receiver can make against you?
The number one mistake a receiver probably can make against me is just not making his all his routes look the same. Certain routes have certain kind of breaks out of them. So with me, I like to see when a receiver makes certain routes, because a lot of receivers, like when they're in their offensive schemes, run certain routes. The primary guy, the X guy, runs certain routes. The Z, the outside guy to the field, usually runs certain routes. So if usually a guy coming into the week probably runs around 4 to 5 like main routes. So just for an example, it could be a slant, a post, a dig, a comeback, and an out. Those are his 5 routes. And if his comeback has a certain look, like if let's say when he's running his comeback to 12 yards, and he rises up and then sits down, that's a great tell for me. As soon as I see you rise up, I'm breaking on the comeback no matter what, because your comeback doesn't look the same as your dig. Like for your dig, he may run perfectly straight, and he doesn't rise up at all, and he gets out of his break in two steps. That could probably be his best route, because he doesn't take as much time to break down for his comeback. For his comeback might not be his best route, because he's rising up, trying to break everything down. He's getting out in 4 or 5 steps. So as soon as I see him rise up, I'm sitting on his route, and I'm trying to take it to the crib, and then I'm going to let you know about it. So that's one main thing, is that for a receiver, obviously, like you said, don't tell them all your secrets, but to try to make every route look the same, whether or not that be a slant, whether or not that be a dig, curl, anything that you're running, try to make everything look the same.
Oh man, I like it. And we've had some wide receivers on the show that said that's like the number one thing that they try to do, is everything's got to look exactly the same. I don't want you to know anything that I'm bringing to the table. And,
Mhm.
looking at your career, man, I've mentioned the All-American awards. I've mentioned, for the FCS and CAA, you helped lead this team almost to a national championship. Looking back now, what letter grade would you give yourself at Delaware?
Honestly, based off of success, I don't even want to base it off of success. I just want to base it off of what I've learned. Just being at the University of Delaware, honestly, I would probably just give it an A, just because of how much I've grown over the time I've been at the University of Delaware. I mean, a lot of guys can't sit here and say that they played, 50 plus games and started 40 of them. I've started 40 plus games for the University of Delaware. I've had my highs and I've had my lows. Um, Going in from a redshirt freshman, starting like about 10 out of the 11 games that I've been in. Thinking that you're on top of the world, and then coming back and having a sophomore slump, as people would say. Having your spot taken due to poor play. A lot of people can't sit here and say that they've gone from starting as a redshirt freshman to losing their spot as a sophomore, then coming back that next year and being voted captain. Because your coaches see how hard you work, and how hard, you know, how much this game means to you, that you told to yourself that it would never happen again. So you come back and being a captain and whatnot, and then, battling through injuries. Everyone has to battle through injuries, and, you don't perform up to your standards. So then now you're 3 years in, and you still haven't made that main contribution that you really wanted to. And then coming back and having the spring season that I did, it just feels like it paid off, that all that hard work paid off. And honestly, during that spring season, I wasn't voted a captain. I wasn't voted a captain, but some guys would even get discouraged and, saying like, well, I didn't make captain. I was a captain the year before. Why am I not a captain now? But not being discouraged at all and just, staying true to the process. And not letting anything really phase you, staying, as my family likes to say, we like to say, staying 10 toes down, not letting anything get you off your pivot. And then coming back your super senior year, being voted a captain once again, I feel like it just comes full circle. Now, my senior season, obviously, I didn't have the amount of individual success that I had the year prior, just because I wasn't getting as many targets, but that means that you're doing your job. If you're not getting targets as a corner, it means you're doing your job. So. But having that just come full circle, full swing, being voted captain again by your peers, just to show how much like they see your work. When you're acknowledged by your peers and your peers see the amount of work and the amount of hunger and drive that you have, coming from a guy thinking that he's on top of the world from a redshirt freshman to not performing well, to getting a spot taken, to coming back to try to battle through injuries, having the individual success that a lot of people want, and then coming back the following year and being voted captain again. I think it just comes full circle as to just showing you that no matter where you are in life, just for me personally, no matter where you are in life, that you got to be humble, and you always have to stay, hungry, no matter what. Even if you have your individual success, even if you're down, when you think you're at your lowest points, thinking that you're like, well, this can't get any worse, always got to be humble and always got to be hungry. Because even when you get the individual success, because it will pay off, hard work will always pay off no matter what. But when you do get that individual success, you just have to remember those times when you weren't. That's what I think helped me, was that when I finally did get my individual success, it didn't phase me and it didn't bother me. Because honestly, it felt like I still didn't do anything. Because I remember like it was just yesterday when I was sitting in my room, mad at myself because I got my spot took. So, just having that always that inner drive to show you that, the work is never done. As Kobe Bryant was saying, it's always more work to do. Job's not finished, and the job will never be finished until you're 6 feet deep in the ground. You always got something more to do. So, like I said, my letter grade, I would give myself an A, just because of how much I've grown and how much Delaware has just taught me about life.
Oh man, I love that answer on that one. And man, finally, last question here. You're headed to the NFL draft. You're getting into the process. If a owner, GM, coach asks you what they're going to get in Nijuel Hill if they select you in April, what do you tell them?
I'm gonna tell him that you're gonna get one of the hardest working guys. He's gonna get a guy who's willing to listen, who's very coachable. He's been through a lot more that meets the eye when it comes to being a corner. He's been at highs and he's been at lows, and at the end of the day, he's been able to stay consistent. You're gonna get a very consistent guy. Um, he knows how to carry himself when it comes to being coachable. You're going to get a very feisty and competitive person that never wants to lose. Honestly, if a NFL franchise decides to take a chance on me, you'll get a guy who's willing to be a team player. He knows how it feels to be that guy who isn't really looked at, as much, because I wasn't a highly recruited guy and always used to earning what he's put out. So you're not going to get a guy who feels like he's entitled. You're going to get a guy who wants to work every day to get better. He's going to he's going to not try, but he will find the right guys on that roster to help him become a better football player. And at the end of the day, you're going to make probably one of the best decisions in your life, just by betting on him, because he wasn't bet on a lot throughout his life. But if you could willing to give that guy a chance, he will not make you regret it. I feel like Lamar Jackson, honestly, you won't regret it. But that's how I feel, and that's why I like him so much.
Oh man, I love it. And listen, man, when you make the league and you do that jersey swap with Kenny Moore, man, I need to. I'm gonna be like, I remember when he said he was gonna talk to him after a game, man. So congratulations on just an outstanding career at Delaware, man, and good luck on your NFL draft process, man. But let people know where they can follow you, where they can follow your process. You can plug social media, give shout outs, man. Anything you want to say, this time is yours.
Got you. Everybody can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at I am Naj. So it's I am underscore Naj Nij. That's what people like to call me for short. Back at home they call me Naj. Shout out to my agents. Shout out to Lamar. Shout out to Anthony and Renaissance Sports. For helping me get here. For this wonderful interview. I want to shout out to the University of Delaware. Shout out to all my guys who's working on their pro days right now. Gene, Dejan, David Kroll, Frank, Daylon, all the guys. Our dreams about to come true in just about a month at right now. I want to shout out to my family, my mama, my dad. My dad been there, my mama been there, my sisters, my whole family been there for my whole career. So they been here with me every step of the way. What I just explained to you. So that's about it. I appreciate you for having me on here.
Oh man, for sure. But guys, make sure to go follow Nigel on all social media platforms. Follow his journey to the NFL draft. It's all about supporting the players, especially at the FCS level, man. So, but for Nigel, myself, and the Blue Bloods guys, we are out for right now.